So we talked about who they are, how they learn. Let's talk about one of the most important things. How do people listen? This is critical, and this thing that I'm about to do builds the basis of the entire presentation, or one of the bases. But it's important. Anybody here on Facebook? Okay. I did one the other day. It's funny. My wife gets mad at me, but occasionally I'll post a question on Facebook just to get people to start fighting about politics. It's because it's fun, but I won't. It won't be like you just can't use the word Trump, Obama, Republican, Democrat, things like that. You just gotta shade it, and then the people start fighting and go insane, and it's funny. And I get bored. I'm like, hey, like 2 letters and go. Yeah.
You said yes or no only.
Yes, you saw that, right? I knew it wouldn't happen. I had 200 comments. I did a motivational thing. I got 1 comment. But here's the funny thing. If you look at people, let's say I'm like a communist. I'm the farthest left you can go, right? And Amy is a libertarian. As far as you can go, we're like, yeah, you should have a rocket launcher, a nuclear weapon in your garage. Who cares? Freedom. And I'm like, we should take everything. So we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? They have done tests. Like MSNBC, CNN, they've done tests with people where they put diodes on their brains, right? And we're having a conversation. And I'm talking to you about what my views are. You know what's going on in her brain? Nothing. There is no activity. It's like, I stop saying what I'm going to say. She fires up. My brain goes dark because I'm not listening to anything she says. That's critically important to understand F&I. Because what's happening right now in the car business? I asked you earlier, who wanted to be in the car business? Everybody's like, However, we all in this room, everyone that's here has a good career or on their way to have a great career. Okay, you've got to that point. It's a great business. You can make good money in this business. You just got to stay with it and keep getting better. So you have that going on. But customers, what's the big issue with the customers right now? Do they like coming to a dealership? No, I stole this from one of the Easy Care trainers, one of my favorite trainers. If you Google how to buy a car, you get like over 1 billion results. If you Google how to live longer, it's like 300 or 400 million. So people are Googling how to buy a car more than live longer. That's how their priorities are. And they're so nervous about being ripped off. And if you look at the actual business now, there's not, what's ripped off mean? Oh, I'm sorry, we made $500, $1,000 on a $60,000 car. That's not ripping you off, that's ripping the dealership off and the person selling the car, in my opinion. But they think it's so much more. They come in to F&I, and how do they view F&I? Tell me some of the crazy things you've seen in F&I. Have anybody ever had a customer that refused to come to your office?
Yes. I've done paperwork out on the phone.
It's all fear-based. Anybody else have another thing, or where they just come in? Anybody ever been called a weird name when they sit down in your office?
Scammers.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We're scammers.
Yeah. And what's crazy about that, if we're going to go through and talk about your purpose and how not to get burnt out, that's going to be later on today. But think about this for a minute. You have 60% of people in this country right now, when we're in a good economy, I want you to think about this for a minute. Our economy is pretty good. You can say whatever you want to say. Economy's doing pretty good. Selling a lot of cars, houses are selling, rates are low, stock market's up, economy's good. 60% of people are paycheck to paycheck in the best economy. 80% of millennials don't have more than $500 to cover in an emergency. I got that out of an article talking about student loans, how they can't pay them off, and they don't have enough for a medical emergency. But I'm like, man, your keys cost $500 now. Yeah. So think about that for a minute. At least 60% of your people should have everything that you offer because they're paycheck to paycheck. One problem and they're out. Okay, so your job is actually to help them, take care of them, but they look at you as rip-off artists, or somebody's going to take my money, or this because of their fear. And how am I going to get somebody that's afraid to listen to me if my presentation is this? Hey, Mr. Customer, here's a bunch of my options. Let me tell you about this first package. This is our platinum package. This is a silver one. I don't want it. Or they cut you off in the middle of it. Save your breath. I don't want to take that. The reason is they came to you not want to buy anything. They're not going to buy anything. They're not even listening to what you're saying. And that's the presentation you've been taught. Not good. Okay? Out of all the schools I go to, been to about 50 different ones, 95% of all the F&I schools teach you to sell that way. And the inherent problem is my customer's not listening to me. I don't care how great your word track is. If they're not digesting the information, it doesn't matter. You could have the best salesperson in the world. They're not going to buy anything. You have to understand something. So there is a thing when you're listening, a thing between reactive listening and responsive listening. It's critical that you get this. Reactive listening is if I'm talking to Ashley, you're going to be my person because you're right-handed right there. If I'm talking to Ashley and she's telling me something I've never heard before, I call that responsive listening because I've never heard it before. I'm like, oh, okay. As soon as she tells me something that has a familiar experience, my brain goes and starts reacting, okay? And what happens, especially in relationships, is important. As she's talking to me, I'm not listening to a word she says. Eye contact, all the thing, I'm being courteous, in my mind I'm being courteous, but I'm really not listening because I'm thinking about how to fix the issue. She gets done, I go, here's how you fix it, and she goes, what? You didn't what? You didn't listen to me. I'm like, did listen to you. Listen to the whole thing. I had a way to fix it. This comes from being with my wife for 23 years. Okay, no, didn't listen to her, which really just wanted to be listened to, but I really didn't hear all the things she said because I was thinking about something. Everybody in this room, you had reactive thinking when you were like, hey, you're going to a finance class. If you know who I am and we've done some training, you're like, oh, I'm going there with Jeremiah, this is what's going to happen, whatever. If you didn't, like I've never met Colin. Colin's like, I'm going to a training class, you know, and in his mind, it's like, here's what it's going to be. And you kind of formulate everything, but it's not, it's going to be different, but that's where your mind goes. So I'm going to do a listening test. I got a couple different ones with these. Now, if I've done these in your dealerships, I know I've done it with UPACs, just don't answer the right question, it'll throw me off. But I want to show you how your mind works. Now, this is a listening test, but I literally want to show you how your brain is wired and how communication works, okay? So, got a word, we're going to write tops. All right, simple word there. I'm going to ask you to say it, ask you to spell it a few times, and then I'm going to ask you a question. When I get to the question, I ask you the question, I need you to answer the question immediately. You can't stop for 30 seconds and think about it. Okay? I'm going to ask you a question and answer it. It is a listening test. Okay? So everybody in the room say the word tops.
Tops.
Spell the word tops.
T-O-P-S.
I got to be a little louder. Say the word tops.
Tops.
Spell the word tops.
T-O-P-S.
Do a couple more times. Say the word tops.
Tops.
Spell the word tops.
T-O-P-S.
I'll do it one more time. I'm going to ask you a question. Say the word tops.
Tops.
Spell the word tops.
T-O-P-S.
What do you do when you come to a green light?
Stop.
You got it. Most of you stop. Some of you got go. But this is cool when you have a room of people. If you have like two and they're both like, you go. You're like, I got like three more I can go over, okay? But it's cool. But here's what's happening. Because I said the word tops, it sounds like stop. At a green light, you're stopping, okay? Instead of going. Everybody knows in a green light, you're going to go. But what's happening is the way your brain's processing information. Okay, that's how your brain works. And you knew this was a listening test. It's in class, you knew it was like a setup, how to answer and everything else. I appreciate you're playing along with it, but think about your customers. If I'm your customer and like, I would say 60, 70% of them are gonna come in not really wanting to be there and their mind's made up, they're not gonna buy anything. Is your presentation really serving them? If you're just going over products and here's what's based on a menu, trying to fit into a payment, are you really serving that customer because they're not listening to you? That's the biggest issue with that. If you're doing a presentation right now with a menu and you go through things and they stop you halfway through and go, I don't want any of that, that's what's happening. It's the way they're listening and processing information.